Fit for Life Radio. Gary and Will here with Coastal Strength and Fitness.
Hello.
This is episode number 212, and we're going to be sharing a tip and going over the programming for the week of August 25th, which will be week 2.
Number 2
of
this 6 weeks.
Of the phase 3 of this 6-week program. The tip we want to share is ultimately about how to succeed with these fitness and nutrition things.
Endeavors.
And, you know, the industry is evolving. It's still young industry.
It is.
But 20, 30 years in, and it's been like the wild, wild west, you know, and it's like trying to help as things are getting harder and harder and worse as far as like people's, health outcomes, fitness outcomes, things like that. And so frankly, what that means is like the fitness industry is not helping that much.
Yeah. Like, are we even making that big of an impact?
Mm-hmm. So in one of our research reviews, they kind of looked at a bunch of reviews, and this was not even just exercise and eating habits. It also encompassed a
lot of other things. Yeah.
You know, so it was more about what is like the best catalyst, the most helpful catalyst to change, right? So I got too many tabs here. Yeah. So what actually helps people change? And to be frank, I mean, that's one thing we spend, you know, as coaches in our meetings. And, you know, once you get past having to run a business because it got to stay open, then it's like, okay, how do we be effective?
Yeah. Because, I mean, you're not in this industry for the most part unless you really do want to help change in some way. Yeah. And it's a hard thing to do.
Mm-hmm. And this was just cool to see, like, how it could maybe narrow things a little bit to be more effective.
And, like, show what's maybe not effective, too.
Yeah. And ultimately, it broke things down into an individual level, which is kind of like the role a single person can have on someone, which is really what we're trying to do as a gym and you know, coaches and stuff like that. And then there's also societal level changes.
Very big picture.
You know, larger environments role, which would be like governments and things like that. But it could be somewhat disheartening, like when you look at the outcomes. But, you know, for us, I like it, right? It's like, okay, this is where to spend most of our time and energy.
Yeah.
And again, there's always new, like, it's like all the fitness industry isn't helping. That's on a large scale. Obviously, individually, some people it clicks for them, and it is super helpful. And in reality, people who are trying and don't quit, you know, do typically succeed. But you want to be able to help more. And yeah, this shows, and what we've kind of known. Actually, we had a post last week. If you didn't read it, it's on our blog at coastalfitnessva.com about paralysis by analysis, you know, and just people information overload.
There's so much, just too much information.
And this touches on that, right? So essentially, on an individual level, you have things like emotions, which is appealing to someone's feelings about a particular outcome. So this is the one kind of most guilty, like, because for me, this can actually helps and works, right? So, but yeah, for most, it doesn't, right? Which is, so like, hey, you know, if you do this, it will help you have better health later in life. Or if you don't do this, it will help you have poor health, right? So you're trying to appeal to emotion. And yeah, that has small efficacy, right? Another one, behavioral attitudes. So like trying to change people's beliefs on certain things, right? Like, hey, like, you know, exercise is essential, you know, for your mood, and trying to convince someone of that, change their behavior around it because of like this underlying belief. Small efficacy. Behavioral skills. So learning how to cook, for example, so that you don't have to rely on prepackaged convenience foods, right? Small efficacy. And then on the individual level, the only thing that had, you know, somewhat substantial, so a medium efficacy, was habits. So creating and practicing a strategy to rely on when emotional eating is triggered. So that's an example, right? So as you see, like having and we've done an episode before on habits and stuff. So like you have this kind of identifying a trigger and then having a habit in place to take
to fall back on.
Right?
Yep.
And then on the societal level, basically similar story. Like everything had small to slightly medium, but generally small effects. So like descriptive norms. So having like a desired role model and then comparing to it, you know? So like, hey, be like this guy.
Be like Michael Jordan.
Yeah. Material incentives. So getting paid, for example, common one with, like they tried it with the vaccine. So like, hey, if you get this vaccine,
you get Krispy Kreme donuts.
Yeah, material incentives, right?
Yeah.
I think a lot of workplaces try that, right? Like, hey, if you like go to the gym, we'll give you Krispy Kreme donuts.
Yeah.
Social support. So a group of people supporting each other in pursuit of better health, like a running club. Again, small to medium efficacy. Again, this isn't saying these things do have small effect,
yeah.
right? So if you're listening to this and you go to Coastal Strength and Fitness, you may be like, man, that's like the thing for me that helps, right? Mm-hmm. So it is a thing. So these are actually
big picture. It might not be the thing. That's really what this is saying.
Enough to move the needle with majority. And again, we'll even go over a list that basically had no effect. These are the ones that had small. Mm-hmm. And then like monitors and reminders. So like a watch or sticky note that reminds you to exercise.
Get up and walk or go for your workout or
again, small efficacy. And then things that basically had no effect.
A lot of them.
Knowledge. So like education about healthy versus unhealthy foods. General skills, general attitudes. So like media campaigns that support a particular behavior, like walking, beliefs, for example, running is the best way to improve your health. Trustworthiness even, so proving the person or organization suggesting a change is a reliable authority, like us saying, listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
That's not helping. And legal and administrative sanctions. So like banning smoking, in public, but people are still going to smoke. So those have basically negligible.
I was really hoping I was going to say it wrong after you said it wrong like 3 times.
So, okay, so where we left with, everything sounds like little to small.
Yeah, like nothing works.
But like I said, there was the 2 strong mediums, right? Which were access. So providing access on that kind of societal level. And then in habits, right? So as far as like how that would for like us, how that would look for helping people are the best time spent. And if you're listening, so your best effort is probably put in these places too, which is one, like we said, access, which then would boil down to environment. Mm-hmm. And this is one you've heard us talk about the most, and that we've believed, especially with nutrition, is the biggest factor. And like people don't want to hear it because you got to make like hard action. You got to take hard action.
You have to.
But yeah, shaping your environment, right? So for example, like, well, if you want to exercise, your environment's going to need to like give you opportunities to exercise. So obviously, like maybe having a gym somewhere in your trip from home to work. And that's also too where like sometimes you would think, oh, well, let me have exercise equipment at home, right? But then that muddies with your home, other environments that you have, and then they all kind of become this muddled environment that don't support
They don't support the habit.
Either of the actions you're trying to take, right? Mm-hmm. Like family time or gym time. So that's where we found like a gym and a gym only is a great environment that
it is.
A lot of people find they take more action with, right? Your food environment. So having the foods that are going to support your goals, having them readily available in your home, and then getting rid of the foods that don't support your goals. Like at the end of the day, trying to fight that willpower and think I'm going to have this free access to all these food, it just doesn't work. And
and it doesn't work, especially when you don't sleep well, you're stressed, you're emotional. If they're so easy to access, man, you're going to go get them. So if we can eliminate them or put them in a hard to reach place, you know, someplace where you're not thinking about them, it's going to be way better when those moments do happen.
Yeah. And we found a lot of people try to like fight their willpower and then beat themselves down when they give in. Like willpower is not the game to play.
It's not. There's a finite amount.
Yeah. Play, food, environment. And it's funny because without thinking about it, that's where I personally have landed on success. And I've talked about it before where like, yeah, like if you came in our house, you know, like the food, the options are what we want our nutrition to be. And then when we want a treat or whatever, we go get it. Oh, it's Saturday. Let's go get some ice cream. Let's go, you know, get whatever snack, or we're making a certain meal. Let's go a more fun meal, you know, macaroni and cheese and all this. We'll go get that stuff, have that meal, eat it, enjoy it. And then it's out of the house, right? So shaping your environment is number one. Like that's going to make the biggest difference. Giving yourself access to the things that support your goals and making access hard to the things that work against your goals, right? You notice how it's not about, so an analogy we came up with that kind of shows the layers. Oh, and then we'll say this third one so we can work in the analogy. And then number 2 is emphasize habits over knowledge, right?
Execution.
So, habits has a lot more impact than the knowledge. So strategically, you want to think like Will said, how do I actually execute these things? So the little 3-step ladder is most people are stuck on like, oh, I need more knowledge, I need more information. So let's say, what lean proteins should I eat, right? That's not helping people.
Yeah.
Right?
So like I could tell you anything. Does that mean you even have an action to take? Like, hey, ground turkey. Okay. Well, why was that? That wasn't even helpful. But if we go for, hey, here's how to prep your lean protein. Now it's an action.
Yep.
Right? This is how you do this task. So and it's a habit of preparing this thing.
Yeah. So like a stovetop recipe, right? A crock pot recipe. Hey, look, there's 2 ways in your week to prepare your some lean proteins. So then you focus on, okay, that's the technical, that habit action is going to be more impactful than just like the information of like what to eat and what not to eat. And then on the third level then is shaping your food environment. So do you have ground turkey in your house? Do you have, microwaved mozzarella chicken stuffed nuggets outside of your house? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like, so that's then like the third step, the ultimate layer is like, look, and the crazy thing is, I mean, you can see it. So many people have the microwaved, chicken mozzarella stuffed nuggets in their freezer, and they'll keep popping them in the microwave and cooking them while they just go online and research the list of
healthy meals,
healthy lean proteins and it's like, but then never develop the habits or create the environment.
Yeah. I think there's a very minimal amount of information that matters. And after that, it's all how do I take action?
Yeah.
Or taking action.
And remember, the goal with this is what actually helps people change.
Yes.
And that's the thing. You need to know to have the ground turkey. So you do need that information, but the information is not helping people change, right? So then you need to develop the habits, which means doing the things, and crafting the environment, which means doing things,
Yeah, and that's hard. But if we can simplify that and say like, hey, work, like this is what you need to focus on, then that might be the helpful approach.
Yeah.
Because information is still a piece of the puzzle. It's just a small piece, right? And then the habit itself is just a gigantic piece.
And speaking of crafting the environment. Another good example is even like, hey, our program here at Coastal Strength and Fitness, week 2. So, and we're a training gym, right? A lot of people, a regular gym, like open gym, you join, the gym is your oyster, is a great environment for some people. For some people, it's not the appropriate environment because then they go there.
You don't know what to do.
And they don't know what to do. And then they, you might end up needing a trainer, a coach, or a gym like Coastal Strength and Fitness, where in that environment, there's the workout is all up there. There's a coach showing you what to do, telling you what to do. And now, boom, all of a sudden, oh, like I showed up, I did the things, I feel good, I'm making progress, I'm going to keep going.
The habit is there.
And that environment supports your success. So with that, like we said, you don't got to think. Here's the program. Week 2, what do you have to look forward to? So coming off of week 1, remember week 1 in a new program, there's maybe some new main exercises. You're feeling things out. You're getting the coordination. You're doing the movements.
Figuring out what kind of weights you're using. And
maybe even some of the structure, like we mentioned, if you're a Thursday person going to cardio days, we're having the longer intervals. You got to maybe see what that feels like. Get your sea legs. And now in week 2, you can start ramping up your intensity a little bit. You're going to have some muscle memory, some coordination that's there. You don't have to think as much, and you can start pushing.
We're ramping up, baby.
Yeah. So
this week, one of the big things that's going to be different this week is Tuesday. We have that strength EMOM, which would be a big shift for a lot of people, because it's, like circuits, there is a work rest there. Not as much rest as on a normal day. So there's a little more of a cardio aspect to it. But that's coming up on Tuesday, and that should be a good bit of fun. Then we'll wrap it up with a circuit after that. So all stuff that's simple, but we could execute really well on and should hit a little bit of everything. So
yeah. And remember, with our workouts, we're really kind of have 3 things that our typical stations focus on, right? It's either going to be strength resistance based, looking for those kind of adaptions. We're going to have zone 2 cardio, working on that aerobic adaption, and then HIIT, which is high intensity, getting those high heart rates. And remember, so it's a strength EMOM, but that's mostly because we're using kind of like strength resistance exercises.
Exactly.
But because it's in a fashion, it's going to be in a circuit fashion.
It's going to be more of a zone 2 type
it's
workout.
Gonna, majority, the goal is like working that zone 2, right? Because you're using weights that's typically, less intense. So like say like, you could probably do a high amount of repetitions with them, but you're going to do less because you got to work through them in a circuit.
The context of, hey, this is a circuit. We're doing other stuff repeatedly.
You're getting fatigued. But the great thing is your exercises are demanding oxygen. You're keeping your rest short, so that demand goes up. So it elevates your heart rate for the sustained time. And it's just more engaging and entertaining for most people than just doing zone 2 in a cyclical way, like just on a bike or just running or whatnot.
It's definitely more engaging. And most people like before you know it, you're done, and that's it.
So that hybrid day. So we'll have, but the cool thing with this strategy is if you're showing up consistently, is you can progress, like look for some progressive overload with some of these exercises, right?
Yeah, it's not like you're going to get nothing out of it. You're just not going to hit a 5 rep max. You're probably not going to PR on anything, but you're still going to get a good bit out of it.
Yeah.
It is week 2, so Bulgarian deadlifts, one of my personal favorites.
So, and that's on Monday.
That's on Monday. Yeah. So Bulgarian deadlifts and chest flies. Those both went really well. And now people will be able to start pushing a little bit. A lot of sore glutes, a lot of sore pecs. So, but I think people got the hang of it. They're ready to start pushing a little bit. So we'll keep going with those. Same thing Wednesday, landmine squats, bench press. We'll keep rocking with those. Some cable curls.
You got any tips for a landmine squat after a week of seeing people do it? Because I know sometimes people struggle with that.
So the biggest thing on those is figuring out the positioning and trying to stay upright, right? Because at a certain point, that bar is going to hit you in the chest, right? Because of the way that you hold it.
On your mobility.
Yeah. I like using heel wedges for people that do struggle with that, because it's going to allow them to stay more upright in that squat, and then we're not collapsing forward. So that's actually probably my big tip is if you need to address your ankle mobility during that movement, elevate the heels on, we have a million wedges and they're all different heights so that it allows you to squat better, right? So don't fight it and fall forward because you're missing mobility. Allow it to keep you upright so you can just do it better.
Yeah.
That's my number one.
And then Friday, the main lifts.
Yeah, we haven't even had a, well, I guess by the time you're listening to this, we would have had a Friday. So front foot elevated split squats, just, a good point on that. I think some people get caught up. Like when we're elevating our foot, higher is not better. Mm-hmm. It's not a contest of how high can I get it.
What if you're 6'4" or you're 5'4"?
Exactly.
Like that alone
it's just going to be different.
Yeah.
So I think don't get caught up in that. And we've had it's our 7th, coming up on 8th week of it. Most people are in a groove, but it's just knowing like that's not what we're chasing, right? Mm-hmm. We got to set in a position, usually a 45-pound plate. That's enough for almost everybody, unless you're 6'5". And once you're there, then we just start adding weight and loading and progressing week by week. And that's about it, And for some people, it might be trying to just get a little more range of motion out of that if they're not quite there yet. Mm-hmm. But just find that fixed position and then go. Mm-hmm. And that's it, And then dumbbell snatches, that's those are a little more technical. And so, the first couple weeks is going to be, let me get this down. But for those, just like you got to move quick, you got to be explosive. Yeah. And for some people, that's a difficult thing to do. But my number one tip on those is if you're struggling with that, just think about jumping. That's it. If you just do a little jump with a dumbbell, light dumbbell, and that'll teach you how to generate that force. Because sometimes there's a disconnect of, how do I make this thing go fast? How do I string all this together? And a lot of times just doing a jump will teach you what does this momentum feel like? So to not overly complicate, that's my number one tip on a snatch, is to just think about jumping. That's it.
I wish I had a little button on here for crisscross jump.
Jump.
And then Thursday, hitting them with that 75 seconds.
It's going to be a tough one for people. Let me look at the exercises. We might not have sled that day. But anyways, it's going to be our typical stuff, bike rower, ski erg, things that, especially for a very long duration, we can keep up. We're not going to do something like a med ball slam on that day because we know that 75 seconds, a minute 15 of doing something like a med ball slam, it's just not a good idea. Same thing with even a burpee. There's no real reason to do that.
Yeah.
The risk outweighs the reward. You're going to feel completely awful.
Well, there becomes a point with burpees where you're trying to get through it.
Yeah, you're not even doing them well.
And you're just getting sloppy,
yeah.
Right? And the whole point's to be able to with 70 something like this is what's the highest intensity that you can maintain for the duration,
yeah.
Right? So then when you factor in technical stuff, well now you're having to worry more about.
Yeah, that's where our limit is at, is our technical limit and not our cardiovascular limit. So that's why, when you come to a day like that, it's usually simpler stuff because that allows us to not have those limitations.
Yeah.
So we're always going to be pretty simple on that.
Yeah. So there you have it. Week 2.
Nothing too crazy, but we're ramping up.
There's your tip. There's your programming.
Couple tips.
You can, if you have any complaints, send them to will@coastalfitnessva.com.
Feel free. You know what? Everybody knows. So I get plenty and it's fine. I'll answer you with a smile.
All right. There we have it. We appreciate you. Thanks for listening.
See ya.